The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes Night Ranger on May 16th and Ashley McBride on May 17th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. The British synth-pop group O.M.D. performs live at the historic Lincoln Theater in Washington, D.C. on May 22nd and 23rd. I spoke to singer Andy McCluskey about the group's electronic hits, including If You Leave from the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. Hey, Andy McCluskey, hey, thank you so much for joining us.
Jason, it's great to talk to you. Thank you.
We're talking to Andy McCluskey of the British pop group O.M.D. So many fans around the world. You'll be coming to the Lincoln Theater in Washington, D.C., May 22nd through the 23rd. And I believe that first show, that first night on the 22nd was sold out, so they added a second night. So does that always feel good? Does that speak to your continued popularity among your fan base that they got to tack on a second show here?
You know how good that feels. Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, it was. I'm trying to think. It's about 13 years ago that we first started to. The reformed band started to come and play in the States. It took us a while, and the crowds have just grown exponentially. So we must be doing something right. It's been great.
Exactly. Well, two nights to see them here in DC. And by the way, that it's a historic spot you're playing, that Lincoln Theater. It's right there on U Street. And I guess the venue, I mean, it's been renovated a bunch since, so it's, state of the art now, but it originally goes back to like 1922. So like Duke Ellington played there, Pearl Bailey, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday. It goes on and on. So, the ghosts, the spirits of music and royalty is going to be swirling all around you in that building. Does it add something when you know all sort of the history of everyone that sort of played that spot? Like, does it give you goosebumps when you're out there?
It is actually quite amazing when you think that you're standing on the stage, as you say, with the ghost of giants, that there's been, decades and decades of amazing people standing on that stage. I suppose also there's a weight of expectation. You think, well, we better try and be half as good as those guys, But
Yeah,
no,
half
I
as
mean,
good as Duke Ellington is a damn good concert.
yeah, but it's, I do actually enjoy playing old theatres. There is an atmosphere and a vibe that I think it's hard to replicate in newer venues. So we are looking forward to our first and our second concert at the Lincoln Theatre.
Absolutely. Did any of those names that I mentioned, I don't know if they ever did your trainee teacher dance. I don't know if they ever did. Will we be seeing you do that? Of course.
Yeah, listen, I have endeavored to perform with dignity becoming my age, but I'm failing. So I'm still doing my favorite description of it actually is the epileptic windmill dance.
Epileptic windmill dance. Okay, all right. Well, there you go. You got to come out to see the windmills, folks. That's fantastic. Do you want to tease the set list a little bit? I'm assuming it's the greatest hits from all over the years. Not just since your reformation in what 2006, I guess you reunited with the group. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it goes all the hits all back over the years, or is there like new stuff you're gonna roll out for us? Tease it a little bit.
We will, of course, play all of the hits that people would expect, and we would do no less. I think it's important when you go to see a band, if they're lucky enough to have written songs that are hits, they should respect their audience and they should respect those songs and they should play them. And they should play them in the way that people remember them as well and don't just break them down into a piano medley of them or something like that.
Right.
So, yeah, of course, we will be playing all of the songs that people know, and we will play them like they are supposed to sound. But we've been blessed that since we reformed, we've made four albums that have been incredibly well received. We're not going to play all of the new album. Do not panic. But we will be mixing a few new tracks into the set list. We've already done it in Europe. I mean, these concerts unfortunately were postponed from last year, so
Mm.
um, we've already played this tour in the UK and Europe. And the nice thing is, basically, the new tracks that we do play, the audience don't just go to the bathroom or the bar, so they fit in nice and they're good. So it will be a great evening of mostly old, but some new also.
I love it. Well, I'd love to highlight some of those hits, over the years. Just I love teasing them because then it reminds folks, oh yeah, they sang that. Oh yeah, they sang that, and then they buy a ticket. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
let's try to move a little chronologically. I know you were born in what Northwest England in 1959. So paint a picture of sort of your growing up. I believe it was like a pretty working class family, right? Your dad was what, a railway worker, I think.
He was in his youth, but by the time he came down to England, because my dad is from Glasgow in Scotland,
Yeah.
um, he was engineering local factories and plants. He ended up working for Shell UK, actually,
Ah.
the petrochemical company. So yeah, he'd come down from Scotland. My mother was a hairdresser and occasional what they call lollipop ladies, which are the people who escort children across the street when they're coming to and from school. So that was yeah, no, it's a very, very important job in the community.
He was
So
in
yeah,
the
but that,
Lollipop Guild.
yeah, oh, very good, yes. She was, I think she was probably a little bit too tall to be in the Lollipop Guild.
Yeah, that's a
For
whole
those
different
who know what the heck you're talking about here, Jason.
Are you kidding me? Wicked just came out last year. It's all old is new again. Plus, I think
Oh,
Wizard of
okay.
Oz is pretty timeless, right? I think it's pretty timeless.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, regular childhood. I mean, I grew up I was in the box room above the staircase because my two sisters had the other bedroom in bunk bed. So my bedroom was literally 6 foot by 7 foot. The bed took up half the room, but it was it was a suburb of Liverpool on the other side of the River Mersey, and it was just a very ordinary, nothing special childhood, really. Apart from the fact that my dad had a bit of a gambling thing, so I grew up with about five racing greyhounds in the house, which was a little different.
Really? All right. That's a cool fact that we didn't know. Well, so wait, would you go to the track with him every now and then?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I loved going to the Greyhound track because it was so boring in between races. My dad would come along and buy me another hot dog and a can of soda pop, so that was great. But these are the important things when you're a kid, you know.
Absolutely. By the way, now I'm going to tangent even more. When you mentioned hot dog, there's a place right next to the Lincoln Theater when you're in DC. It's legendary called Ben's Chili Bowl, and you can get some chili dogs and stuff. Hit it up after the show. You're going to love it. Right there on U Street. Anyway, back to what you're saying. So there's a box room above the stairs. You're in a really small. It's an efficiency, a little small box room above the steps. Did you ever bring a record player, a Victrola, up in there, or was that more maybe down in like the living room? I want to know what you listened to, as growing up.
Yeah, no, as a kid, my mother had an old red and grey Dansette mono record player, and she had a pretty cool collection of singles, actually. She had a lot of Beatles singles and a lot of Kinks. So when I was a kid, I was mostly listening to the Beatles and the Kinks, which is a cool couple of bands. But
Yeah, man.
she loved Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals. So I grew up learning from the age of about five, I could sing, "Oh, what a beautiful morning."
Oh, what a beautiful day. All right. You were dreaming of Oklahoma, even though you're in England. All right. And
Yeah.
you were listening to the Kinks. Were you listening to them all day and all of the night? Or
Uh, Mostly just the daytime. I think I would have got shouted
that was
at
just a
about.
bad pun.
Yeah, I know. I got it. I got it.
Thanks for rolling with it. You really got me. You got my jokes. All right. But in all seriousness, that's really good music to grow up on. Beatles and Kinks. Okay. You can't go wrong. That's great. And all right. So then when do you meet Paul Humphreys then? It was in school, right? But you didn't form the band right back then. It was like you reunited a couple years later in 78 to officially form Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, right? But you actually met him years before, right? As schoolmates.
Yeah, Paul came to my school when he was seven. He was in the year below me, so I knew him, but we weren't close friends. He was actually a very good football player. I remember he played in the playground at lunchtime. It wasn't until I was 16 years old and I'd got myself a bass guitar with my birthday money. And as you do, you go walking around the local park going, "Oh yeah, oh you noticed my guitar over my shoulder? Yes, I've got a new guitar. You noticed? Oh yes." Anyway, he came knocking on my door with some guys I'd never met because they went to his. He went to a different secondary school to me, and he went, "Hi Andy, these are my friends who are in a band. They're looking for a bass player. I saw you with your bass over your shoulder in the park. Would you
Yeah.
like to join them?" So I joined that band. But very quickly, Paul and I realized that we had more in common. So on a Saturday afternoon, I would go round to his house because he was into electronics and he had built a stereo. So
Ah.
we would listen to my German import records that I bought with my paper round money and on his stereo. And that's how we got into that music. And then we crazily, at the age of 16, decided that we might like to somehow make music, although we had one left-handed bass guitar that I played upside down, and he had nothing, so he started cannibalizing his auntie's radios for the circuits and making these weird noise machines. And that was all we had. We were just very weird and ambient for about 6 or 7 months until Paul finally bought some cheap keyboards, and that's how it all started. When we were 16, actually, it was a few years before we finally created Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark.
Wow. I love that. I love that there was a bit of tinkering with radio circuits and gadgets like you were. I love that there was a little bit of I don't even know, entrepreneurial and engineering spirit, but to make it work with whatever you could find until you actually formed. That's
Yeah,
that's hilarious to
we
me.
we had no other option. We had no money, so it was just
Yeah.
whatever Paul could make.
That is fantastic. All right, and then the moment where you officially form in '78, then I mean, sure you get this question all the time, but for my listeners, I know they would love to know how you came up with that catchy name, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. It's deep, it's catchy, but it's also kind of deep.
Well, I'll be honest with you. People always ask me, is there a deep meaning to it? And I have to be honest that say, no, there isn't. We just specifically wanted a very weird name because we were going to be two guys borrowing our friend's tape recorder, playing songs that not even our best friends liked very much in a new wave club in Liverpool. So we thought we need a weird name here. We need to let people know that this isn't punk or rock or disco or whatever, this is, but to be honest, every band that came out of Eric's club in Liverpool at that era had weird names. I mean, there was Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, there was Echo and the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes, Flock of Seagulls, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. The
Yeah.
list went on. We all had crazy
You gotta
names.
have a weird name. I appreciate the candor that you to just admitting that you were it was weird for weird's sake. You had to match the fellow weird names. It wasn't anything you were trying to go extra deep. We could read into it, but for you it was like, ah, yeah, that's weird, just weird enough. That sounds cool.
That was, I mean, to be honest, actually, we knocked on the door of the guys who ran the club, and we had played a few months earlier when we were in a kind of prog rock band, dreadful band called the Id, and we knocked on the door and said, "Hi, it's Andy and Paul from the Id. Could we do a Thursday night, which was the free night for members, the kind of local talent night?
Yeah.
Could we do a night just the two of us playing our electronic music?" And we thought they would tell us to get lost or use a word beginning with F, and and they said, "Yeah, sure. What you called?" And we were like, "Oh shit, we haven't got a name." So we give us an hour. We went back home on the train to my house, and I used to write things on the bedroom wall. And Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark was actually an idea for a song title. So we just went, "Yeah, that's weird. That'll do. We'll call ourselves that." It was only going to be one gig, and that was
Wow.
46 and a half years ago. We're still stuck with the damn name, Jason.
And it's the British spelling, right? It's Mano with Maneuvers. Yeah, yeah.
OEU,
But maneuvers. All right, I
I'll
love it.
probably spread the French spelling actually,
The
but
French spelling, yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. But no, it makes sense that we all call it O.M.D. But all right, well then, so and that was the name of the first album there in '80. It really, if you're trying to chart the history of of the timeline of like synth pop or whatever you want to call it, like there that is like a line of demarcation when you guys kind of arrive on the scene with that album. I think so. Take me into what's one of the hits we'll hear. How about Electricity? Oh, well, probably Messages too, I guess. If you could share any insights, if we're gonna come here to hear those songs in DC, any cool behind the scenes stories of you and Paul putting those two together?
well, certainly Electricity was actually the very first. shall we say, real song that we ever wrote because Paul, by this stage, had his cheap 60s electronic organ and strange electronic piano that we'd bought from our mate who was selling them at school. And um, so we wrote a melody, and literally we learned how to play by writing that song and other brand new songs. So we were still 16 when we wrote Electricity, which went on to become our first single on Factory and now is one of our international calling cards, even though it was never actually a hit anywhere ever, but everybody seems to know it now. And the funny thing is, of course, we were huge fans of Kraftwerk. And I remember years later, I got to know some of the guys from Kraftwerk, and I was in Dusseldorf, and I was invited to Wolfgang Fleur's apartment for dinner, and there's Karl Bartos there and Emil Schult, who used to do their artwork and write some of the lyrics. And I was just looking on the wall, and there just happened to be a gold single for the song Radioactivity by Kraftwerk. And I said, "Oh, Radioactivity, that album was amazing." And our song Electricity was really just a kind of English punk sped up version of Radioactivity. And they all went, "Yeah, we know."
That's great. Well, because Kraftwerk, they were out of Germany, right? Like yeah, a couple years before
Correct.
you got. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's funny. Yeah, we know. That's great.
Well,
Well,
we will be playing Electricity. We will indeed also be playing Messages.
yeah,
I think I don't want to give away the whole set list, but yeah,
sure.
that two tracks off the first album will definitely be played live in DC.
I love it. And then, of course, off the second one, Organization, I'm sure we'll hear Enola Gay, your anti-war anthem. It's of course named after the U.S.
Mhm.
aircraft that dropped the nuclear bomb. Which I always thought this is probably connecting too many weird dots, but you were born in 1959. There was a great French movie that came out by Alain Resnais, part of that French New Wave called Hiroshima Mon Amour, which was all about the bombing over there. So anyway, I always thought that was a cool tie-in in my own brain. But
And
Enola
I know
Gay.
the film. I didn't realize it actually come out the year I was born. So
There
no,
you
wow.
go. You can always
Yeah.
slip that in maybe on stage as you introduce it. I don't know. But anyway, but since you didn't know that, what for you, what was it? Why was it important to put that out? I mean, I guess it's height of the Cold War still then in 80. So yeah.
I was well, yes, it was the height of the Cold War. I mean, I was a geeky model building kid. Paul was into his model trains. I was into model airplanes, and I had loads and loads of planes like that I would make and then hang by cotton threads from the ceiling of my tiny bedroom. And if you're interested in airplanes, and I was particularly interested in Second World War airplanes because I was born 14 years after the Second World War ended. You come to the Enola Gay, which is the name of the plane that dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima, because also there was this kind of appalled fascination about the moral dilemma.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
drop a bomb that kills 150,000 people, but may save 5 million. Discuss the morality, So
Right.
it's
Yeah. You mean like if, as opposed to like a land invasion or something. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, how do you what's an acceptable amount of it's like that Doctor Strangelove, like, depending on the breaks. Like, but what's an acceptable amount of mass killing to save another level of mass death? Yeah, that is a moral dilemma. And that's why the song to you that's why the song I guess clicked, right?
yeah, I mean that is as well as being fascinated by the machine. I mean, I've always been fascinated by the moral dilemma of warfare. That it's like you know, uh, in a time of peace, the things that you're encouraged to do in wartime would get you arrested or locked up. But in wartime, it's like, no, no, go over there and kill as many people as you can. So it's a very, very, strange kind of headspace to be in. And, the whole mentality of warfare. It's always horrified but fascinated me at the same time. So yeah, so I wrote the song. There were several lines in it that a lot of it is the lyrics are metaphorical, so you kind of have to know what the song is about.
Mhm.
It's 8:15. That's the time it's always been. You have to know what that is. That was the time the bomb was dropped.
Right.
And my favorite line is mother proud of little boy today? Because
Whoa. You mean the pilot?
well, the pilot named the plane Enola Gay after his mother, so he was her
Oh,
little boy. But also, the bomb was codenamed Little Boy. So that line has at least three different meanings in it.
Wow. Well, there you go, songwriters. Like, good luck trying to match that. You got that's great songwriting. Or, I mean, or if it, like we were talking about the film Hiroshima and Mon Amour. But yeah, like screenwriting as well, whatever, or literature, whatever. Like, if you can pack that many meanings, multiple meanings in so few words, that is the name of the game. That's genius right there. So, bravo to you, man. I got to go back and listen, thinking in those terms now. Wow. All right. Obviously we don't have time to go to all the albums. So I'm just trying to tease some of the big ones we might hear. I'm sure we'll hear Joan of Arc off the third album, right? Architecture and Morality.
You'll hear both of them.
Souvenir and Joan of Arc.
But
Oh, you mean both
there
Joan of Arc? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there are two Joan of Arcs and Souvenir. Yeah, we normally we play those three together. It's the Holy Trinity. It's Souvenir, Joan, and Maid all together, and we never split them up. So once you hear Souvenir, you know what's coming in the next three songs.
Oh, you play them back to back. It's like,
Yeah, we do.
We Will Rock It, We're the Champions. You never hear them separated. Those are three. Those three are together for you guys. All right. You were talking about how you were fascinated with morality with Enola Gay, but now then we're doing architecture and morality. Take me into the evolution into that album.
Well, the title actually came from we were on the same label in the UK as Martha and the Muffins. And my good friend Peter Saville, who designed our sleeves, was dating Martha Ladley, the keyboard player from the Muffins. And she said to me, I've got a title for an album that would suit you down to the ground. I read this book called Morality in Architecture. How about you switch around and call an album Architecture Morality? And I just went, I'm having that. Thank you very much. Well, yes, I will. Thank you. She is also the person, by the way, who gave me the title for the song Tesla Girls. And you
Ah, which
hear
has
that
new
in
meaning now with Tesla as a whole.
it,
Yeah,
it, indeed,
yeah.
yeah. Perhaps I should get a sticker on it saying we wrote this song before Elon went crazy, you know.
I've saw bumper stickers on cars. Some people put that on their Tesla now.
You know it, yeah.
Yeah. But that
So
was the
yeah,
fifth. That was junk culture, right? So we're back in. Yeah, we're still in architecture morality. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it was basically we were touring in France in 1981, and the support band said, "Oh, it's like you're doing the Joan of Arc tour of France." I was like, "Well, you're playing in Rouen and Orléans and places historically associated." So that piqued my geeky interest, and I went back and days before Google, I went to the library and got books on Joan of Arc and
Nice.
became rather fascinated. Wrote one song, didn't think it was working, decided to write another one. So I wrote Joan of Arc on the 535th day of when the English burnt her, I think.
Wow.
Always a good idea for an Englishman to write a song about French heroine on the day she was burnt by English people.
Yeah,
Uh,
is that your place to write that?
yeah,
I
I
guess
know.
time. It's not. I don't think they would have said too soon. I think as enough time passed. I think you can
It
do
was my act of national contrition. So
Well, I
and
mean,
then
what was it? The great movie was Carl Theodor Dreyer, and he was from Denmark. So you know what I mean. Different countries can do it. It's fine.
exactly. We were packing up the stuff from our studio to go down to the Manor Studios to record, and Malcolm, our drummer, just said, "Are we doing the waltz Joan of Arc as well?" I said, "No, no, I wrote the other one because the waltz wasn't working." And he just, out of the blue, just said, "Well, listen, why don't we try and record it? Let me play drums on it. I'll make it a hit." So I did, and he did. So
And the rest is history. It's
yeah.
played in every concert, including here in DC. Awesome. All right, and then so like I think that was a pretty big, at least commercially successful album with the one with
Oh, it
Joan.
was massive. Yeah, it was. It
And
was
then,
a,
but wasn't the next one a little more experimental? Dazzle Ships. I mean, Genetic Engineering, Telegraph. There's songs that fans will remember, but were you guys trying to maybe experiment a little more in that one?
we were very confident. Everything we were doing was an experiment.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons, I guess, why we were doing unusual music that did kind of change the tide of popular music towards electronic music.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just thought, well, we want to do something that's a little bit more dark, a little bit more political. But hey, everything we do seems to turn to gold. So we mistakenly thought we'd get away with this fourth album. And yeah, at the time, the Dazzle Ships album was just a little bit too fractured for people's tastes. It's now considered to be a masterpiece,
Yeah.
but at the time, it nearly killed our career.
Isn't that the case sometimes? Maybe they weren't ready for it, but your kids are gonna love it or whatever they say. Hey, and then, all right, and then so then the next one, junk culture, as you mentioned. Well, you mentioned Tesla Girls, also talking loud and clear, never turn away. Tesla Girls, like you're saying, it became like like people would dance into that thing in the club, and it even, I believe, it wasn't it even in the John Hughes movie? It was in Weird Science, Weird Science,
Correct. Blink
which
and you'll
was.
miss it in Weird Science. I think it plays in a mall at some point briefly, but
Yeah, but
it's
most people know from dancing in the club, right?
yeah, yeah. It's no, I mean it was again, it was a fascination, geeky fascination. Martha Ladley suggested the title. I looked up Nikola Tesla, got fascinated because for those who don't know, they know the Tesla car, but the reason the Tesla car was named after him
Mhm.
is because Nikola Tesla is effectively the father of modern electricity.
Right,
He invented the alternating current motor and dynamo, much to the chagrin of Thomas Edison, because Edison was promoting direct current
yeah,
and was already rolling it out, building miniature power stations, but there had to be like a miniature power station on every block
right.
because direct current was so inefficient. And he was so pissed with Tesla coming up with a better type of electricity that it was Edison who suggested to the US government that they might like to use this dangerous new alternating current to kill people and to kind of to give AC a bad rap.
Yeah.
So Edison invented the electric chair to stop people using Tesla's type of electricity.
Wow. And Edison gets all the credit in hindsight, but that's it.
But yeah,
Wow.
so
Or
that
AC/DC. Now we, yeah, if we're going OMD, now we got AC/DC. It's
yeah.
all all these abbreviations. Wow, that's it. Yeah, but Tesla Girls was a massive hit. And like you said, it briefly appeared in Weird Science, but if you leave, speaking of John Hughes, was massive on the Pretty in Pink soundtrack. And I know it was one of the few Hughes didn't actually direct himself; he wrote the script for it. I think it was Howard Deutsch directed. But how much do you think the movie helped catapult that one? Molly Ringwald and all the rest. I mean, at least for us here in the States, it's burned into our brains from that film. But yeah, how important do you think it was for it to be on that soundtrack?
Oh, absolutely. It's essential to the development of our career in the States. I mean, in the early days, in the early 80s, we were selling big numbers all over Europe and we were, having huge hit singles. But we were on a label that just in the US really didn't get us nor want us.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really break out of like college radio and a few independent radio stations. We were not getting commercial radio play. So all the big hits from Europe weren't really big hits in the States. The States caught up afterwards and kind of got to know some of the earlier tracks. So when John said to us, I want you to do a track for my movie, and of course we'd just seen Breakfast Club and Simple Minds have a massive hit, and
Of
we were like,
course.
yes, please, we want to be in your movie.
Don't you
Uh,
forget about me. Yeah, was the one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you know the story though that the first song we wrote wasn't the one that was in the movie.
No, well, regale us with that tale. That's awesome. I want to hear that.
We went to Paramount Studios. We met Molly and John Cryer and John Hughes and Molly. Molly and John were young, but they were like, "Oh yeah, we love your stuff. We love your music." We were like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you very much." Um,
Had Crush come
and
out yet? Because the album was 85, right? With Secret and La Femme Accident and
I
So in
think
Love. But
I
that was
think
right before that, right?
it was before Crush. I
Okay.
think.
Okay.
And John just said, "Yeah, want a song for the big prom scene at the end." The only stipulation was we filmed them dancing to "Don't You Forget About Me," so it's got to be 120 beats a minute. We said, "Okay, we can do that."
Like a placeholder, you
Um,
mean? Like
yeah,
that was a placeholder track.
yeah. That was. So we said, oh, we'll make it the same tempo. We went home, we wrote a song, we came back armed with the 2-inch multi-track tape ready to mix. We were just about to actually go out on the road with the Thompson twins, and John said, "Listen, I love that song called Goddess of Love, but I've changed the end of the movie and the lyrics don't make sense. Can you write me another song?" And we're like, "We just arrived today. We're jet lagged. Our equipment is flying into San Francisco. Yes, of course we'll write you a new song. What the hell do we do now?" So we just booked ourselves into Larrabee Studios in Hollywood, rented in some equipment, and whilst the equipment was being delivered, Paul and I stood by the piano like old time songwriters. We'd never done this before in our lives. And Paul started marking out piano chords, and I started trying to come up with a vocal idea. And then we started work using the Fairlight computer that we were writing on in those days. And yeah, by about 3 in the morning, jet lagged to heck. We sent a cassette by a motorcycle to Paramount, and we went to bed and tried to sleep. And then, literally a few hours later, we got a phone call from our manager going, "Yeah, John's heard the cassette. He loves it. Go back in the studio and finish it." And we were like, "Oh God, okay, we're so tired." So yeah, we wrote "If You Leave" off the top of our heads in one day, and it became our biggest hit by a mile in the States.
It isn't that something. All the amazing artistry we've discussed from all your other albums leading up and after that. But the one that everybody knows when they hear your name, the career hit that associated with you, is one that you were sort of forced to write in a rapid fire amount of time just because John Hughes needed it to fit a certain timing for the prom scene. That's hilarious to me. But that's how the
Yeah,
best,
well,
some of the biggest hits happen, right? You're just kind of
well,
forced and it just happens.
we got lucky, Jason. I mean, for those who are big John Hughes fans, they'll probably know this, but maybe some of your listeners won't. The original ending of the movie was that Molly's character Andy got together with Ducky at the end of the movie.
With John Cryer, yeah.
Yeah, when they tested it to audiences, all the teenage girls went, "No, no, no, he's her friend. She needs to get together with the good-looking guys." So they reshot the end of the movie. And of course, we get to do the red carpet treatment in the limo to the Man's Chinese Theatre, and we're waiting through the movie, enjoying it, but impatient to get to the end because we knew when our song was coming. And we get to the end, it's ba-doo, doo, 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 boo. And we're about 30 seconds in, we went, who the hell edited this movie? Nobody's dancing on the beat. It could be any bloody tempo.
That's hilarious. That the whole reason you wrote it was to be to the beat and to that time. And then when you watch it, it wasn't to it. Then we're dancing to it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But you know what? Because I think that song is in a prom scene, it became the prom song at every prom for the next several decades, and
Right.
possibly still is for all it. So every American knows
Yeah.
that song because it's
Yeah.
associated with the prom, and everybody went to the prom.
You're right. That entire Gen X and probably even into the millennials, like you're saying, a couple generations. If you leave, they're thinking in their minds of that prom scene in Pretty in Pink, and then they're like, "Well, we wanted to play it at our prom." So there, yeah, that was that. You're right. That's probably why it had such staying power. You're absolutely right. One more John Hughes question, just because I want to remind our listeners really quick. He was on a tear. I'm gonna list it. So he wrote the script for National Lampoon Vacation, didn't direct it. That was Ramis, but he wrote that. Then he wrote and directed 16 Candles, wrote and directed Weird Science, wrote and directed Breakfast Club, wrote Pretty in Pink, like we're talking about, wrote and directed Ferris Bueller's Day Off, wrote and directed Planes, Trains, Automobiles. And then you get Uncle Buck. He wrote Christmas Vacation, writes Home Alone for Chris Columbus. Like, man, when I list all those, I mean, that's the movies of touchstones of a whole generation. But do you have a favorite of any of those that's not Pretty in Pink, a Hughes movie?
Um, Probably Ferris Bueller's Day Off because I remember John telling me I've written a whole movie where nothing really happens.
Yeah, they're just playing hooky.
Yeah, and I thought it's genius.
It's absolutely hilarious. Yes. Chicka chicka. Anyway, it's a great one. All right. Well, you've been really generous with your time. I mean, we've been going album by album up in this, and there's clearly not enough time to hit them all. But let's say it this way: of the post "If You Leave" Pretty in Pink worldwide phenomenon, post that era, Pacific Age, Sugar Tax, Liberator. What was the other one? I guess Universal was
Mhm.
before, your hiatus. Do you have one that of the in that period that you're particularly proud of, or one that you think's like underrated?
Um, I think I'm very proud of Sailing on the Seven Seas from the Sugar Tax album,
Yeah.
and you will, I think, be hearing that.
We get Pandora's Box off of that too.
Yeah, I think Pandora's Box comes and goes. I think we might be substituting Pandora's for Secret. Oh, Story About Secret. Everybody knows Secret. It wasn't. Do you know why it wasn't a hit? Because it was never actually available to purchase.
Ah, and this is back on the Crush album.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
battered on the radio.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it. But in order to get John Hughes changed the release schedule for If You Leave. It was supposed to be Pretty in Pink by the Psychedelic Furs as the title track, and
Uh,
then If You Leave. He decided to go with If You Leave first,
mm,
and so Secret was at radio, But when Paramount Pictures says we're going to put the weight of Paramount behind your next single, so make way for it, we had to pull Secret off the radio and get If You Leave out. So Paul wrote Secret. So he would have had a massive hit in America, but it never actually went into the stores because there was no, it never went on sale. We had to take it off the radio to get If You Leave ready for the launch of the film.
Well, that is a hilarious story. So Secret could have been even a bigger hit even back then, but it was delayed thanks to John Hughes.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, that's a cool story. But then in terms of like the after the Pretty in Pink stuff, so you said we might hear Sailing on the Seven Seas, Pandora's Box comes and goes. Do
Forever
we
Live and
get Walking
Die.
on the Milky Way? I don't know, I'm trying to think of that period of some of those hits that we might hear in DC.
Yeah. You'll hear Forever Live and Die. You will hear Secret. You will hear Sailing on the Seven Seas. And then you'll hear one track from our History of Modern album, which is called History of Modern Part One, which we always play because I get the audience to jump up and down. It's hilarious to watch several thousand people jumping up and down to a song about the end of the universe. Always.
I love that. And that was the first album back since
Yeah,
I guess you
yeah,
reunited, right? It was
yeah.
History of Modern, English Electric, Punishment of Luxury, and Bauhaus Staircase.
Bauhaus Staircase, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, essentially, this is the Bauhaus Staircase tour, but
Gotcha.
I will probably play maybe four or five from the album. But as I say, don't panic. It sounds egotistical, but they're great songs. They fit in fine. You won't need to go to the bathroom, and we will. We are relentless on stage. We will have
Yeah.
fun. There's a couple of moments where we take it down just so we can all have a breather. There's a nice moment where we all come down the front of the stage and the lights go down, and then we play a song called Varushka. And I always know exactly when the face of Varushka comes up on the big LED screens behind me because suddenly the entire audience go, "Wow!" and they get their cameras out.
It's the Varushka moment.
Yeah.
Well, folks, you got to come out to Lincoln Theater for the Varushka moment in DC. It's going to be great. Final seconds. Do you ever mix in any Atomic Kitten? Do you cover? I know it was the girl group. You
No,
were sort of behind the scenes and songwriter,
no.
etc. But have you ever done a cover of the girl group
I
Atomic?
actually did do a cover of the song Whole Again, which I wrote for Atomic Kitten, which is a massive worldwide smash everywhere but the US. Just because it was for a charity record for
Yeah,
number ones from Liverpool, and yeah, I created a girl band and wrote
yeah,
that song for them that was a massive hit.
yeah.
I did a cover version of it, but you won't be hearing it.
That's okay. Hey,
That's
thank
it.
you so much for doing this, Andy McCluskey of the group O.M.D. coming to Lincoln Theater in Washington D.C. May 22nd and 23rd. First night sold out, so they added a second. So come out there on the 23rd, there on the historic spot on U Street, and get Ben's Chili Bowl. Get a chili dog after. I'm telling you, you won't regret it.
Jason, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing all of your listeners there and maybe yourself too.
Sounds good. All right, appreciate it.
Bye now.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.